This is from 62 into a pretty good win, right into it. Butker drills it. Is it long enough? It is! From 62 yards.
You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome into today's KCSN Update, your daily YouTube and audio podcast here from us at KC Sports Network, getting you up to date with what you need to know about the Kansas City Chiefs. Hey, if you missed yesterday's video, it's a very good video. If you missed yesterday's podcast, go back, listen to it. It's BJ and Brett Coleman breaking everything down from an X's and O's standpoint. Brett is very good at the X's and O's, and I got another guy who's very good at the X's and O's here today as well. Kent Swanson is joining me to break down this Kansas City Chiefs and San Francisco 49ers breakdown. I usually like to go behind enemy lines, but we're going right here. We're staying on our side of the things, and we're going to break down this Niners matchup. But before we get into it, I got to say, if you want more of Kent, you want some Matty, if you want some Craig mixed in with it, maybe some Craig mixed in with it, who knows? You need to tune into the KC Lab live tonight at 8 p.m. Arrowhead time. Those guys will be in it. So, Kent, welcome on. This is your first appearance on KCSN Update. How are you doing?
It feels weird to be in this setting. I'm excited to do it, though. We don't get a lot of airtime together, Tuck, so I'm kind of excited here, buddy.
It's like 21 questions usually is when you and I are on. But, yeah, this time we really actually get to talk football because big matchup. Chiefs looking for a rebound in a Super Bowl rematch. Looked this up earlier. First time these two teams have played since the Super Bowl. Relatively, the Niners are pretty much the same team, which is kind of odd. But let's get your 5 things that you're looking for in this matchup. That's what we do on Thursdays. We really shift that gear. We look ahead to this new team. Bills game's behind us. What are you looking at, Kent, for kind of the first, not necessarily matchup, but just an aspect of the game that you got your eye on?
Tackling. I mean, I think that's one of the big things coming out of this game against the Buffalo Bills. I don't think the tackling was particularly consistent. And when I look at the San Francisco 49ers, I think they present a lot of challenges with their skill players because I think they have a very strong, diverse group of players that good contact balance, a lot of physicality. Like when you're playing the San Francisco 49ers, I think you're playing a very physical football team with a lot of different guys. I mean, I think it starts with Deebo Samuel, just a diverse kind of player who, they trust to put in the backfield and run as a true running back. But he's also catching a lot of those deep digs behind the linebackers of the Chiefs. He's a guy that can run through the defense and run with great contact balance. I think that's going to be a big challenge for this defense, is just being really sound with a very physical football team. And it's got to start with the tackling, especially in that back seven, which I think you saw, a lot of inconsistencies with the tackling effort of the back seven. The extra yards that they can get after contact are going to be a big deciding factor for this game. So I think you've got to be really mindful of the tackling there for the Chiefs.
It's interesting, too, because usually when we talk about the cornerbacks, the defensive backs for the Chiefs, we usually talk about how sure of tacklers they are. It was a little iffy. It was hit or miss, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and it can seem like a very elementary thing for us to say, right? Like, yeah, you got to tackle, you got to bring the guy down. But it could be a real problem, especially as you mentioned, Kent, with some of these guys that have, Brandon Ayuk, you got those guys. George Kittle is one of the guest guys that like making guys miss after the catch. So I mean,
Jawan Jennings, I mean the list, Kyle Juszczyk, I mean yes. Jeff Wilson, I mean they've got all kinds of physical players that are going to present some challenges for this team for sure.
Not only do they got physical guys on one side, on the offensive side of the ball, they got physical guys on the defensive side of the ball. So Kent, what are you looking for on your second thing that you got your eye on?
I'm looking at Fred Warner. And Fred Warner is an absolute game wrecker. There are very few linebackers in the National Football League that can affect the way that Fred Warner can. I think you saw one of the guys that can affect the game last week when the Chiefs played the Bills in Matt Milano, and you saw how impactful a dynamic linebacker can be in a game. Matt Milano was all over the place. He was making plays, putting the Chiefs behind the sticks consistently. He was an absolute problem for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. trying to get out of the backfield. Isaiah Pacheco trying to get out of the backfield. It's the same thing this week. Fred Warner is a dynamic playmaker that can do a lot of things in coverage and against the run, sideline to sideline, speed and ability to disrupt the game. You've got to know where he's at in coverage. He's a guy that can play a little bit of man coverage consistently. I think he's a guy that can wreck this game, especially, considering, some of the potential defensive line injuries that the San Francisco 49ers are going to have. They could be shorthanded up front, which is, obviously a big part of their game is being disruptive up front. But Fred Warner, I think he's a guy that can absolutely disrupt the game. The Chiefs are going to have to know where he's at. They're going to have to take his abilities into consideration with their play calling.
Absolutely. And he's a top, 5, maybe top 3 linebacker in the league.
Easily. Yeah. He might be
easily,
the best.
Could be top 1. But I mean, they faced another good linebacker, as you mentioned, Kent, last week, in Matt Milano. Matt Milano seemed like he played a really good game against the Chiefs. I'm going to be really curious to see. He kind of patrols that middle of the field, and that's where the Chiefs like to go with the ball. So I'm going to be really interested to see how that matchup shakes out if he goes on Travis Kelce, if they put Travis Kelce on him, because he's probably one of the only linebackers in the league who'll be like, yeah, that guy could probably hang with Travis Kelce step for step and be there with him. So how they combat that is going to be so interesting, because Fred's a dude and that defense really does run through him.
Absolutely. And yeah, you said it against Travis Kelce. Even, I mean, this guy he's a game changer, man. Like he's a guy that, like, I think he might be the best linebacker in football. And I mean, it's a tall task. It's a big challenge for this team. I think he's what makes them tick. He's what allows them to be what they are on the defensive side of the ball.
He's going to try his best to take away these exciting plays that Patrick Mahomes makes when he gets out of the pocket, when he can scramble. They might, have other defenses that they can get those magic plays out of Mahomes, so they can kind of keep those at bay. But I know when Patrick Mahomes is scrambling around, I get a little excited, gets my blood pressure pumping. Kind of like when I'm making some bets at DraftKings Sportsbook, and you can make every play feel exciting with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, and their unbeatable offers. Right now, new customers can make any $5 NFL bet and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Check this out. In addition to the usual bets, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. This is what I've been liking to do with the same game parlays, Ken. I don't know if you like to do this as well. I like to do the touchdown scores. So I have been putting Travis Kelce down. That's almost a sure lock. Travis Kelce to get a touchdown. That's usually a lock. Maybe for this one, I'll throw down an Ayuk, maybe a Deebo Samuel with it. I've been running with the Clyde touchdown because it seems like every time they get into the red zone, it looks like it's Clyde territory to get a touchdown. But I like red zone Jody. Maybe I'll put the 2 tight ends on a little same game parlay there. We'll see. We'll see when it comes to when I get those odds out. But to make things even sweeter, you can throw down on stepped up same game parlays once per game day all season long. Here's what you got to do. You got to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code KCSN to get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Just place a $5 bet on any football game. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook using code KCSN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See the show notes for details. Now, Kent, let's get into your third thing that you're watching for in this game. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of different moving parts in this game, but what do you got your eye on?
Well, speaking of moving parts, Kyle Shanahan has a very elaborate offense with a lot of movement, a lot of run concepts that he introduces. He presents you a lot of challenges. They want to run the football. They want to run the football effectively. But the play action off of that run look is what is going to be a major deciding factor, I think, in this football game. As elaborate and diverse of a run game as Kyle Shanahan has, he has brilliant timing instincts on the play action calls that he gives. And that's especially big with Jimmy Garoppolo back at quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, the quarterback that was in the Super Bowl for them a few years ago. But their play action is outstanding. It's arguably the best in the National Football League as far as conceptually. He's able to get a lot of guys open. And by that, I mean, Kyle Shanahan is able to get a lot of guys open off of their diversity in their run looks. They get a lot of deep digs behind your linebackers pretty consistently. Deep overs they get a lot consistently. They're big chunk plays that they're able to generate off of play action. They make it pretty easy on Jimmy Garoppolo, who, I think can be affected. He's not the most consistent passer, but he's been pretty good off of these play action looks with some of these easy, completions that Kyle Shanahan's been able to draw up for him. I think it's going to be a big impact on this game if the Chiefs are able to, navigate that. How consistent can they be against play action? How disciplined can they be structurally, defensively, to kind of help mitigate some of the play action looks that they're going to see? They're probably going to prioritize stopping the run with a bigger emphasis than maybe they have in other weeks, which this offense presents a lot of challenges on the ground. And you want to slow them down and you want to stop them on the ground and force Jimmy Garoppolo to be a true drop back passer. But if they've got everything working, all elements firing as consistently as as they can in the run game and pass game, it's going to be problematic. So play action behind the linebackers is going to be a big factor in this football game. Jimmy Garoppolo is able to get some of those chunk plays out of those looks, because that's what happens a lot of times. We go back to tackling, talking about Deebo Samuel getting one of those deep digs off of play action and running through that defense. That's a problem for the Chiefs.
It's a stat that BJ brought up on yesterday's KCSN update. Again, if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that conversation with Brad Coleman about the percentage of passes that Jimmy Garoppolo, percentage of targets, I believe, from behind the line of scrimmage. He's very near the top. A lot of their passes, a lot of their schemes his pass completions come from behind the line of scrimmage. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, Kent. Craig wrote a really good article on the KCSN Substack. If you're not subscribed to that, go do that. You can find the link in the description. $30 a year will get you all the premium content from Kent, Craig, Maddie, all the KCSN lab guys, and also get you daily updates from Charles Goldman as well. That's a free subscription if you just want that as well. You can go find that in our description. Wrote a really good article about the kind of the fronts that the Chiefs are seeing for offensively. The Raiders going with 6 linemen. There's been a lot heavier fronts. The Bills ran the ball 17 times with Devin Singletary, which is unheard of. So the Chiefs are going to face a whole lot more running. I'm curious. I know Spagnuolo doesn't really like to change a whole lot, but do you think we'll see a shift in kind of how they play the Niners?
I don't know if you're going to see too much of a shift. I think some of the players, we're going to talk a little bit about this in a little bit, but some of the players coming back, just getting them back involved into this defense could really help, make a big impact on how this team is able to play. Maybe they don't change too much up schematically, but just getting some personnel healthy and back could be a big factor in this. But I mean, the Chiefs are going to have to respond. I mean, they're going to have to, they've seen some of these heavier personnel, 21 personnel, 20 jumbo with the 6th offensive lineman the last 2 weeks. Guess what? The Niners' best personnel grouping might be 21 personnel. So you're going to get a lot of that, I think, this week. And the Chiefs are going to have to be up to the task because they're getting it again for the 3rd straight week.
Yeah. All right. 2 more points for you here, Kent. Thanks for hopping on, joining us. What's your 4th point here of kind of what you're looking at?
Well, yeah, we talked a little bit about Fred Warner being such a dynamic football player, and the Niners could really utilize him similarly to the way the Bills utilized Matt Milano this past week against the Buffalo Bills. The Bills rushed 3 and then spied with Matt Milano and kind of added him late to the rush as Mahomes was moving around and moving outside the pocket, kind of getting around a little bit. This could be another week. I think the Niners have the personnel to potentially replicate that a little bit. So if the Niners are going to kind of deviate away a little bit from some of their core principles to try to navigate, a very good offense and a very good quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, the Bills might have presented them with a blueprint for doing so. And so I'm kind of curious to see if the Niners employ some of the similar strategies that you saw the Buffalo Bills present the Chiefs with 3 rushers, a late addition to the rush with a quarterback spy, a guy that running around trying to, add late to the rush / spy the quarterback and follow him wherever he goes. That could be a strategy that they employ this week. Would not be stunned at all if they did try to copy what they just saw Buffalo do successfully. I think they have the personnel to do it. I would not be stunned in the slightest.
Right. And I don't think they're going to waste Fred Warner on the spot. I would say waste in air quotes. Fred Warner on the spot because he can just do so many more things. But they've got the linebackers, as you mentioned, Kent, to do it. And we've kind of alluded at this kind of the whole time is this last point. So before we talk about the players coming off injury and the players coming back, I do want to read off the injury report from Wednesday. Mike Dana, calf, didn't practice. Rashad Fenton, hamstring, did not practice. Joe Tooney also did not practice with an ankle injury. Brian Cook, only limited participant. Full participants for L'Jarius Sneed, Harrison Butker, McCole Hardman, Trey Smith. The Niners have themselves a laundry list as well. Eric Armstead, defensive tackle, foot and ankle injury, didn't practice. Samson Ebukam, is that how you say that name? Ebukam, yes. Achilles injury, never good. Another defensive end did not practice. Talanoa Hufanga, I know that guy's name. He's in the concussion protocol, didn't practice. Mike McGlinchey, a tackle for them, didn't practice as well. And Charvarius Ward, old friend, did not practice on Wednesday. For them, Nick Bosa, limited. Trent Williams, limited. Those guys could come back for this game. A lot of different players on this injury report. A guy I didn't mention, Willie Gay, could also come back for this game.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like, who plays for both of these football teams? I think the Chiefs need, some of the guys that we just got done talking about back. Trent McDuffie would be a welcome addition this week. Willie Gay would be a massive addition to this team this week because of his athleticism, his range. He and Nick Bolton have very good chemistry. I'm not to say that him and Darius Harris didn't have good chemistry with Nick Bolton, but it's different. And, I think Willie Gay's presence in the middle of that field, I think he can challenge windows on those play actions a lot better. I think he has more sideline to sideline speed. Getting some of these guys back into the mix for the Chiefs, maybe Brian Cook being added, a sure tackler in the secondary if they are playing some of these lighter personnels, it could be really big for the Chiefs, getting some of these guys back. On the Niners front too, like, if some of these guys aren't able to go, that's huge for the Chiefs too. I mean, you're looking at some really, impactful players, some expensive players,
right,
that haven't practiced or are on a limited participant. I don't anticipate that the Niners are going to have all these guys back. And I mean, just looking at the guys that didn't practice on Wednesday, Eric Armstead, Samson Ebukam, Talanoa Hufanga, Mike McGlinchey, Charvarius Ward, those are impactful players. Your best corner, arguably your best safety, one of your offensive linemen, a defensive tackle, one of the better defensive tackles in football, and a defensive end that's had a lot of success the last couple of years. That's a big list, and you're probably not getting the best version of Nick Bosa either. So this is a big week for the Chiefs, and I mean, depending on if the Niners bring everybody into the mix this week, I mean that it's going to be a different team than what you saw last week. It's going to be a different football team than you saw, what the Chiefs saw on tape this last Sunday.
Follow him on Twitter at Kent_Swanson. Kent, thank you for hopping on, joining us on KCS and Update. He'll also be live tonight, 8 p.m. Arrowhead time. You can find the KC Lab. I almost called it KCSN Lab. I've done this probably several times where I go to call it the KCSN Lab, but
it's only been a year, Tucker.
I know. Crazy, right? The KC Lab, 8 p.m. Central Time, wherever you find your live shows, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. So it's Kent. Thank you for hopping on. Thank you guys for watching today's episode. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow, BJ will be with Trevor Sickma to get his 3 key matchups going into this game. So can't wait for that one. I'll be back next Thursday during the bye week to go over, something. Drop a comment below if you want what you want us to talk about during the bye week. So until then, I'll see you later.